It's an isolated wilderness preserve on the largest island in the largest lake in the world, Isle Royale, where there's a battle royale between a population of moose and a population of wolves, duking it out for survival. It's just after sunrise in Copper Harbor, Michigan. These adventurers are getting ready to head out into the middle of Lake Superior, to an island unlike anywhere else on the planet.
Welcome aboard, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard the Isle Royale Queen 4. My dad bought the boat in 1971, and I've been coming here for this is our 44th year.
Captain Don Kilpala is heading out to Isle Royale, a massive island in Lake Superior, protected from the touches of modern-day life. Tucked up near Thunder Bay in Canada, the island actually belongs to the state of Michigan in the United States. If Lake Superior is shaped like the head of a wolf, then Isle Royale is its eye.
Take a look around, take a look. I love Isle Royale. I think Isle Royale is the most beautiful place in the Midwest.
It's beautiful because it's pristine wilderness. The island is home to a population of wolves and moose, and being isolated from the mainland means it's the perfect place for researchers to study predator and prey. But when their population balance shifts, the whole island is at risk. Researchers are trying to figure out when to intervene and when to let Mother Nature take charge. It's not exactly an easy spot to visit.
You got to take a boat or you got to take a seaplane. You've got to make arrangements. It's usually a 2-day travel experience. It's 50 miles long, 10 miles wide. It was a resort area and a commercial fishery in the 1850s, 1860s. They had copper mining there. In 1944, it was by Congress enacted as a national park. You really feel like you have a wilderness experience when you come out here. There's no roads, there's no cars, there's no electricity. 99.8% of the island is a wilderness area. I've been saying this for many years, only the hardiest of the hardy go to Isle Royale.
The hardy visit, but the hardiest work here. Rolf Peterson has been coming to the island for 44 years, living here for 6 months at a time to keep watch over the moose and the wolves.
It's a perfect combination of science and a great story. Isle Royale provides a really unique observatory, more than an experimental area. We're just observing nature. It's a simple system where the whole island is dominated by a single predator, the wolf, and a major prey animal, the moose. And that interaction has fascinated scientists for over half a century.
Because the whole island is dominated by these two animals, Rolf's job is to ring the alarm if the whole system goes out of balance.
The science part of it is to figure out how nature works, basically. What role do predators have in the dynamics of their prey and in the ecosystem in which they live. It's not a static balance. I don't even like the word balance because it implies some kind of an equilibrium out there.
This year, he's counted 1,000 moose on the island. That's more moose per square kilometer than anywhere else in North America. In the past, there have been as many as 2,500 moose on the island.
Yeah, there's a bull moose feeding in this pond on leftover plants from last year, aquatic plants. And that's a real important source of protein for moose. He's lost a lot of his hair to winter ticks that were on him last year during the winter. They're all off him now, but They're so irritating that the moose bite off their hair and rub off their hair. His antlers are growing real fast right now, and they're about 10 inches long, and they'll get to be perhaps 3 feet long. She's a young, could be a yearling, who's been kicked out of the house by her mom. And so she's looking for her mom. And life is just bad for a yearling. So if her mother has a calf, she'll get rid of her year-old offspring so that that calf bonds just with her. If you're a moose, life is just full of danger. Everything about them is geared towards avoiding predators. Their huge ears allow them to hear things a mile away. That big nose, which looks so awkward, is full of fancy valves that allow them to shut off their nostrils voluntarily. They can close their nose off. We can't do that. You know, we gotta go like that.
By closing their noses, moose can swim far distances, which is how they got to the island in the first place.
Moose probably swam over here early in the 20th century, and then they went through a big boom and bust without any predators here.
Quickly, the moose population shot up into the thousands, gobbling up huge swaths of the forest, almost destroying the island.
What to do about the overabundant moose population was the prominent wildlife management controversy of the entire national park system in the 40s. That went away as soon as the wolves showed up.
The wolves showed up thanks to a particularly cold winter in the 1950s. Lake Superior froze solid, and the wolves strolled over from Canada to an all-you-can-eat moose buffet. Wolves are a lot tougher to spot than the moose, even for a seasoned expert like Rolf.
Saw one at Lake Ojibwe once, a couple years ago. Yeah, it's been 2 or 3 years at least.
Despite having plenty to eat, the wolves still have problems. Since their population is small and isolated, inbreeding is putting them at risk. Rolf is looking for any clues they may have left behind.
Here we got a wolf scat from this spring, and we just keep track of what they're eating from the hair that's in the scat. So it's either moose or beaver usually. This one's all beaver. Okay, moving on. There's no wolf track here, so they've been by here. They love beaver dams, so that's where they catch beaver when beaver cross.
To catch the wolves in action, he installs remote cameras around the island.
Now this is a remote camera that's triggered by heat in motion. So an animal walking by here will set off the camera and it'll film.
This camera will stay up for months until the battery dies.
Okay.
Rolf needs this footage to know how the wolves are doing, and he's not optimistic. Right now, the island is in danger of losing its top predator. There are only 8 left, the fewest wolves ever counted. If they die out, the moose population will grow too big for the island to handle.
What really directs what happens here are unpredictable big events. And they're like the freight train coming around the corner that you don't know is approaching, but it's going to change everything when it gets there.
The big events can start out small. In 1980, a visitor brought their pet dog to Isle Royale, introducing canine parvovirus to the wolves, which killed off half the population. That allowed the moose to grow out of control, decimating the food supply on the island. So much so that in 1996, 75% of the moose died of starvation.
The next year, immigrant wolf came from the mainland. He started breeding right away. His genes started going out throughout the whole island because his offspring dispersed and became breeders in all the rest of the packs within 3 years. And so his arrival led to a genetic rejuvenation of the population. They rose to high levels, and they started killing moose at a rate that we'd never seen before.
Now the wolf population is back down because of inbreeding.
Everybody's so closely related, they just can't find anybody but their brothers and sisters or mom and dad to mate with.
These record low wolf populations are affecting more than just the moose.
So beaver are going up, moose are going up, foxes are going down because they rely on scavenged carcasses. Ravens are going down. I know what the future of the island without wolves would look like. and it's not very pretty. We've seen it before, and the public didn't like it. Scientists and wildlife managers thought it was irresponsible, actually.
With the island so close to the tipping point, Rolf calls in some volunteers to give him a hand.
Bones! Lots of them!
Here on Isle Royale, Rolf Peterson is trying to keep track of the moose and the wolves living on this remote island. He's trying to analyze how healthy the moose population is. For that, he needs to scour the island for bones. At 72 kilometers long, it's a huge chunk of land for one person to watch. So he recruits volunteers to come give him a hand.
I work as a data programming guy in healthcare in Jackson, Michigan. But this week, I'm taking a week of my valuable vacation so I can lead groups of volunteers off trail, and we're looking for dead moose. And when we find them, we do a little backcountry CSI and we bring certain bones back.
Bone!
Oh! What you got?
It's a scapula.
Drop packs, guys, and let's spread out and search around here. We'll probably find some of the other bones.
They're on the lookout for three particular bones: the skull, the mandible or jawbone, and the metatarsus, which is a bone in the foot. Those particular bones will give Rolf a lot of information about the moose, like health and age.
Bones! Lots of them!
Where you at, Larry?
Toward the ridge.
Okay. It's definitely a wolf kill. We got the bones spread out here. And I got some of the ribs are chewed quite a bit. Yeah, they were taking a nice tasty lunch here.
Well, looks like I found 2 leg bones over here.
Which leg bones?
I really don't know my bones as well as you do, so.
Okay. Back leg, femur, tib fib.
Okay.
Keep looking, we need the skull.
You got a spread over here. Some vertebrae, some ribs.
Oh, we got the pelvis.
Good work, good work. So how's the pelvis look? Has they got any arthritis?
That may be a little bit right there.
Aha, got a metatarsus. So this one's been chewed on, but from the metatarsus we can tell roughly how healthy and how big the moose was. So this is a keeper.
Well, let me see if I can arrange these.
Okay, got the skull. Got the skull, guys. So this is definitely a wolf kill. The bones are scattered about. We found the bones probably over a spread of a good 200 feet. We haven't found all of them. A lot of the bones, especially the ribs, have been chewed, so the wolves were definitely quite hungry. This particular bull is not very old. The teeth have not been worn down a lot, and the pelvis is not showing a lot of signs of arthritis. So it's a little curious that they had a chance of pulling down a bull moose at some point, probably in the winter or early spring, because there's no antlers growing on the skull at this point. So it might just been starving a little bit towards the end of winter, but for some reason it was weakened and the wolves decided they could take this particular moose down. And they ate pretty much all of him, and we can't find all of him. And that's fairly typical of most of the wolf kills. You don't find all the bones. Okay guys, go find another moose. Spread out in a picket line. I got us on a bearing of 210.
This team will be out in the woods for a whole week, hunting for bones.
Over the 13 or 14 years that I've been doing this, I have probably found 90 to 100 moose that have contributed to the project.
Back at his cabin, Rolf goes over every bone with his wife Candy, looking for clues into the animal's life.
The bull skulls always weigh much more than the cows, and you can see here that his antlers had just fallen off because it's kind of a concave surface and it's very rough. So he died early in the winter.
That's this guy?
Yep.
Okay.
They match. All right. And then that goes there.
Yeah.
And
But it was loose and infected, so. All right. And that's the right, left hip. Dislocated hip.
He was limping. Probable wolf kill.
Yep. Okay.
This is the haul from this year alone. Rolf has amassed quite the collection over the past few decades.
Well, this is certainly the world's most unique collection and the biggest collection of antlered moose skulls. Yeah, we started collecting skulls of moose in about 1979 or so to get more data on size of the skull and particularly the brain case, which is a sign of early nutrition. From the antlers, we can tell how healthy it was because that's what the ultimate purpose of antlers is, to indicate to females how fit a bull is. Yeah, these moose are a real exception. Most moose die without their antlers on, and most of them are killed by wolves. Each of these bulls has a story, and some of the stories we know. These two guys in the front died locked together. They got their antlers stuck during a rutting fight and then couldn't pull apart, and they both died. This is a good example of a moose that died pretty young, probably 2 or 3 years old, but his antlers were pretty pathetic for a 2-year-old, and they were asymmetrical, which means there's something wrong with his health, and the wolves killed him. This, among all these strange moose, this would certainly be the strangest. It was born with uncertain gender, neither completely male nor completely female, and it didn't have enough male testosterone, male hormone, to grow normal antlers. A set of antlers that was originally attached to this moose. They're extremely heavy. Large antler might weigh 10 pounds, 8 to 10 pounds. These are 3 times that. So each of these antlers probably weighs about 30 pounds.
Each of these bones helps Rolf uncover the story of the animals on this island.
There used to be a wolf-moose story, and it's a wolf-moose vegetation story, and then it's diseases of wolves that have come into play, and parasites of moose in the form of winter ticks. And so the story gets more and more complicated with more and more players.
That's how he gets the story of the moose. But the wolves are much trickier. When Rolf collects the remote cameras from the island, he gets an eyeful that he wasn't expecting. On Isle Royale, Rolf Peterson has just collected footage from his remote cameras around the island. Wolves are incredibly difficult to spot in the wild, so this footage is crucial. It's the first time he's seeing these wolves up close in months.
This is really the only way we see up close the wolves behaving normally, like here's an adult. One of the males or females. We'll never see that wolf up close. This is my first time through what we picked up this winter. It's a fox. That's mostly what's going on, and it had just snowed, so they're having to dig it all out. Ooh, wolf, okay, that's what we want. If I can tell who it is, that's nice. All I know is this is a pup. Probably another pup. There's 3 pups in this pack. Okay, that's the collared wolf. In his case, he's a non-breeding adult. His sister is the breeding female, and the male is a distant relative, a more distant relative. Sometimes you can see their femur protruding. No, this one looks fine. By the time pups are 9 months old, they have to take their place last in line. So if anybody starves, it's the youngsters at this age. So it's the alpha male and female that will eat first. Now that's one of the adults there now, chewing on a bone. So this was maybe the only time I've gotten more than 2 wolves, 3 wolves a couple times in the summer, but it was really good because this we now know is a brother and sister, and then aunt who's much more cautious, is waiting for these other wolves to get through this area. Now she's coming. See, I was there 10 days previously, and these wolves are smelling my scent.
Sometimes he plants little surprises in front of the cameras just to see how they react.
This was really important footage for us because it was the first time these 2 wolves, we'd ever seen them. And then we put some scats here from the other end of the island in hopes that they'd stop and check it out. And they found it extremely interesting because they know who these wolves are, but they're not supposed to be here. Maybe that's what they're thinking.
And sometimes he catches a glimpse at the predator-prey relationship in action.
This is one of the better little clips we've ever caught. At night, wolves, all you can see is the lights of their eyes, but it's the audio. There it is. There it is. That's a moose growling at these wolves to intimidate them. And I'd never heard that before. It's really wonderful because the moose was about a foot away from the camera. And the wolves were intimidated and they all left. So it sounded like a lion roaring. So that's the kind of luck we like to have.
For now, the wolves of Isle Royale still have a fighting chance. But Rolf doesn't want to leave it up to chance this time. He's pushing to introduce new wolves to the island, a pair of them, to boost the current population.
John Bustich and I, we share the directorship of the study. We've both advised strongly that putting wolves here from the mainland would be a pretty smart thing to do in terms of conserving the present population of wolves and conserving their position here on the island as an apex predator, and mostly keeping a lid on this moose population, because once that population bomb goes off, yeah, there's problems.
It's a foggy, rainy morning on Isle Royale. Jeff and the other visitors are on their way home after a week out in the wild.
Of the 4 teams, we found, I believe, about 19 or 20 different moose. We've got a lot of data for the project, and most of us are probably happy to be going home so we can get some nice dry clothes and a warm bed that we're used to. The wolves are definitely an important part of the identity of Isle Royale, I think. Just the chance to be off trail or on trail and hear the wolves at night, because they do howl, and that does add a certain flair to the island that you're not going to get if the wolves are gone. And it's nice to know Isle Royale's here, and we're lucky enough to be able to come back year after year.
As they return to civilization and the hustle and bustle of regular life, Rolf is still here, fighting to keep the wolves and the island alive.
I would hope my legacy would be that people would appreciate how important it is to have a complete ecosystem, meaning top predators as well as herbivores and vegetation in some kind of a relationship. And it appears to be rather difficult even after 50 years for people to actually realize that these wolves are actually pretty important, and they in effect manage the island. So it's as simple as that.